Hey everybody, this is Brent Ingersoll, and you are listening to the Speaking of podcast. Today, we interrupt the regular marriage rhythm that we've been doing with the marriage talks, and we are doing an edition of Headlines. Headlines is when I sit down with my friends Anthony Moore, Bradford Rogers, and my sister Shea Guptill, and we talk about things, current events, things that are happening in the news. Today was a great, fun conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it. Here it is, my conversation, Headlines. Check it out. Okay. Guys, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
We're headlining. This is another edition. Welcome back to the pod.
Yep.
We've been doing a lot of marriage pods, and
we
interrupt this program
for important news.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff has happened.
Here it is.
Can't forget that.
There
Producer Ron with the magic.
Our top story tonight in New Brunswick. Gladys has turned 87.
Yes.
Hey, I like
Steve
I
Murphy.
love
Steve Murphy, man.
I actually like that about
Treasure.
Atlantic Canada and Live at 5. I actually like the. And we want to give a happy birthday to Mildred, who's 99.
Yep.
And here's a drawing of the sun by
Haynesville.
12-year-old Stephen.
Muscadabat Harbor, Nova Scotia.
Here's a stick pic.
Look at this beautiful sailboat
picture
and there's a fish.
by little Tommy. He is 26. Okay.
That's so good.
This is where we sit and we ponder some headlines, some things that have been in the news in the last few weeks. Anyhow, real time react.
Yep.
We've had some fun. We've had some fun on this.
Yes, we have.
On the one hand, I think we're probably still in the same situation. A lot of the same headlines we're probably still dealing with. But hey, let's do it again.
They haven't canceled us yet. Maybe they will this time.
This one, I have a feeling this one's officially going to be called
You can't cancel
the cancellation
me.
episode. No,
I'm not playing your game.
That's right.
So
They can't cancel if you're not even playing the game.
That's for real though. Anyway, we'll get to the cancel stuff. I'm sure. All right, producer Ron, get us started. Cue the headline.
You ready for the first one?
Yep.
Lil Nas X trolls those upset by his Satan shoes that contain 1 drop of human blood. Back to you, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, so
Satan
Satan shoes.
This is very disturbing, actually.
First, I'll say I'm a sucker for Air Max.
It's true.
I have a hard time not liking any Air Max.
Sure.
So
Probably.
I'm in.
No. Okay.
Sold.
Okay. And here comes the letters. Here comes the emails.
Like the church can cancel me.
That's right.
The cancel culture can't.
Yeah. No.
The only problem that I had with these shoes is that they did like an interview with Lil Nas, and they said that his kind of target audience were kids.
Yeah.
They were kids.
Yep.
Come on.
But what
Lil
was
Nas.
actually pretty fascinating about him is that he was actually raised in the church.
Yeah.
And he had some struggles with the church.
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of like result of, blowing up, right?
That's something.
Interesting.
Yep.
I guess from my side, there's part of me goes, okay, be disturbed, but okay, what do you expect? All right, should we expect anything different from an unbelieving world?
Yeah.
Like, if anything, they're just like, I don't get the evangelical outrage over the whole thing. I think it's just way over the top. Just be a little self-aware. Do you really expect anything? Do you expect a non-Christian to have Christian values?
Sure.
Like, that's ridiculous.
100%.
The bishop, T.D. Jakes, I remember when they passed the same-sex marriage legislation in the U.S., the weekend after, he'd obviously received a lot of, vocal stuff from his congregants. And I remember he came out and he said it so good. He goes, "We're not going to worry when the world acts like the world."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have our values, and where we're listened to, we will obviously try to be salt and light.
Yeah.
But let's not be surprised when they
Yeah.
don't have the same values as us.
100%.
And yeah, this is nothing new either, is the other thing. Like, I mean, Kiss was doing this, Ozzy Osbourne was doing
Yeah.
this. Like, this is old hat, you know? Like, that's
Right.
not a new trick.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Trick.
It is a
yeah.
trick.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's,
sure.
it's, it's just
Publicity
marketing.
and-
It
yeah.
is totally. They knew
Yeah.
what that would do. I would say, so outside of the church, I think you make a good point. Like, look, let's not freak out. The church should never attack those outside the church.
Exactly.
Ever. Like on any of
Yeah.
these issues. And like Paul's really clear about that. If you read the letters
Sure
of Paul,
is. Yeah.
he is ferocious about integrity and character and Christ-likeness and holiness within the church.
Yes.
And there's stuff in there where he's like, expel the immoral brethren.
I know.
And we're going to turn so-and-so over to Satan.
Yeah.
Like he says that stuff.
Yeah.
Like kick him out. Let Satan
Yeah.
kick his butt for a while so
Yeah.
he maybe comes to his senses.
No, it's
so
true.
he's dead set on that. But then he also says like, you know, we don't judge the world the same way we judge ourselves. We don't hold them to our standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's crucial that we make those distinctions. That said, let's flip it though. A Christian should not, Air Max aside, should
Right.
not wear, I don't think, shoes that have been overtly
Oh.
Yes,
dubbed
agreed.
satanic.
Yeah.
Like you are,
Yeah.
so the church probably to a harmful degree under some pockets of the church underplays just how real powers and principalities are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we can give the enemy access into our lives through a multitude of ways that we aren't even aware of. So let's on the stuff that's overt,
Right.
like just don't watch stuff that's movies that has the occult. And like, I just
Yeah.
don't do, I just
Yeah.
don't,
100%.
I don't mess with the devil.
No, man.
Like,
Yeah,
real
see,
stuff.
Well,
It's real stuff.
Because really, it's your feeding. Like when you're into that stuff, you are, whether or not you're intentional or not, you're feeding off of that, and so you should just be really careful about what you're feeding from, and whether it's entertainment, like because you are in it's your whether or not you're consciously like, oh, I'm gonna get something out of this. It's not in that language, but you are internalizing things. It's just. I think it should be pretty straightforward for a believer that you should just not mess with that stuff. Talk about fear. Like I think that, just this, obviously the season that we're going into is just really this time of re-clarifying and restoring foundational stuff. And man, like fear is one of those things. Fear and, it's pretty indicting, and this is a pretty strong statement. So I'm going to just hedge it with that. But like I say, like we have too much in the church specifically, again, with all the other qualifications, we have too much stuff and tolerance for things and being entertained off of things that Jesus died to destroy.
Yeah.
it's a good
And
word.
it's real.
100%.
It's a heavy word. It's truthful. And do I have place in my life? Sure. Like but it doesn't change. It doesn't, whether or not I have a perfect track record is beside the point. It's still, that statement is true, and the church needs to hear that call to just stop.
There's a lot of gray areas
Yeah.
in life for a Christian that you're not totally sure if is this wrong or right, and God lets you discern and learn. But there's stuff that's just like, it's overtly anti-kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think we got to be on guard for that
Yeah.
stuff. And it's not
Yeah.
just stuff that's got like, hey, we got human blood, 666.
Right.
No, it's not even
like,
that.
It's like in music you listen to that's overtly glorifying things that, again, Jesus died to do away with.
Yeah.
I just think if we tolerate those things, you are, whether you think it or not, you're building a level of agreement and access to those things in your life, and
Absolutely.
it will reap destruction
Yep.
more than I think you think. Like nodding your head to that, to Cardi B,
I know.
I think does more damage than you think it does.
It sure does.
So,
Yeah,
sure
and
does.
I'm not even saying that from like a, what that's doing to sexuality and that whole ethos that she's purporting.
Yeah.
I'm just even saying, like, when you just nod your head along, or you watch a movie that's clearly like, it's clearly like, I've had this conversation before, like about murder shows and stuff that, it's interesting, on the one hand, it's cool there's a justice element to like CSI and those things. I'm not saying that Christian can't watch those, but it should cause you to think, you know, some of the scenes that they come up with and the death scenarios and like, where did that originate? That idea and that image of how this person, they're demonstrating this person, like it's connected to something bigger, and it's not none of this stuff's in a vacuum. Yeah. It's all connected to the spiritual world that you don't see. And I think we sleep on, you know, the demonic, whether you like to think about it this way or not, is everywhere, and they're on us and they're after us, and we all have demons that are constantly working at us. So why tolerate or invite?
Well, I think we're supposed to be, like you said, directly opposed to that. And if we are sitting there allowing or tolerating or nodding your head or doing whatever, you aren't directly opposed to that thing. You aren't telling that thing that they have no place here, that they, you know, you're actually allowing space for that in your life.
You are, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And on the flip side, I think we as Christians should be, you know, putting out stuff that is like creative and good and wholesome and healthy and funny and great and light. Yeah. I think so much we can be on the defensive side of, but like we should be in Hollywood and we should be on Netflix and we should be helping people see Jesus better.
Yeah, how good would it be? How good, other than the memes right now, the John 3:16 shoes memes, right? But like other than the memes, how good would it be if there was like a section of the body of Christ who was actually like doing and putting out really creatively, like
good stuff.
Objectively, that those are amazing shoes, right? Or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, how good would it be if the body of Christ actually, someone had the inspiration to have a shoe company that was actually doing amazing things from an artistic design and creativity standpoint?
Well, unfortunately, and this is a whole, we're going to shift into a different space here, but within Western evangelicalism, there is an industrial component to it.
Yes.
That has actually commodified the church and Christianity itself. I mean, we've had conversations about the music industry. Like with the exception of some worship music, like so much Christian music, I cannot. I hate it. It's just such crap. Like it's just not so good. Bad. It's just so bad. You know, it's like, now that said, mainstream, there's so much crap in mainstream pop.
There is.
Pop is just, I was just making fun at lunch. What was that? Is that KTX? BTS.
BTS.
Close.
No, but there's that song. There was that song on. I was like, Melanie was like humming along. She's like, I like this song. I'm like, did I just hear the lyrics? Correct me if I'm wrong. The lyrics were, na 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 dynamite. was that the lyric? She's like, yes, and I love it. But you make a great point, though. There's been a whole, like, frankly, our generation came up with like, you can't, like, good art is not Christian.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's not always been the Christian story. I mean, you go to Europe.
I know.
And like,
it's beautiful.
You see the
murals, the buildings.
Well, I mean, like. The Sistine Chapel, some of the greatest art that's ever been created, done as an expression of belief and faith. Like
bring
Christians,
glory to the Lord.
we were meant. We have the most incredible thing to actually, you know, the most transcendent stuff to propagate. So,
actually, just on that note, and this is a shout out, I think, to our Halifax campus, who had I saw the posts where they had an artist doing a painting during the service. I thought it was amazing.
Really cool.
Yeah, he does cool stuff. But it's there's a vacuum that the church needs to figure out how to step into.
Absolutely.
And so maybe that wouldn't have, you know, if we didn't stick our nose into culture where we shouldn't. There's the inversion. Yes. We've stuck our nose into the culture in the way we shouldn't.
Yes.
You can't have Satan shoes.
That's right.
Yes.
Instead of sticking our nose into the culture the way we should.
Here's a better option.
Hey, check out these Jesus shoes.
Right.
Yes.
No, yeah,
they're like sandals, but they're not.
Yeah. I just this whole, like, be self-aware or just aware enough of who you're talking to and how you should treat the people that you're talking to and what expectations. Like it boggles my mind, and it's just ridiculous about people who think that a non-believer would conduct themselves in the same way as a believer, and why that would be so offensive to them to see that happen. And it's not Christ-like, for one. Let's just be honest. Yeah. It's just not Christ-like. We should at least be self-aware, call out our own. Let's just, protect our own, just take care of our own, steward our own. Like I'd be like that, and be the light, and be a loving and a generous people. Like,
it's a lot easier to pick the speck out of someone else's eye than the log in your own.
That is true.
And the church has done an unbelievable, in the West anyway, the church has done a great job. Although not in the last 10 or 15 years, the church has kind of stopped being the moral police,
right?
Which is a good thing. Unfortunately, nature abhors a vacuum, and there is a new moral police out there,
right.
Which I think I see Ron cueing our next thing. That this is gonna. Here's a segue for you. Just hit the music, Ron. New headline.
Pepe Le Pew reportedly canceled by Warner Bros. as New York Times columnist accuses cartoon of promoting rape culture. Back to you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank God.
This is wild to me.
This is wild.
So
it is wild.
Stupid and bizarre.
Yep.
That we would allow a song by Megan Thee Stallion, WAP, right? Which we all kind of know what that stands for.
Yep.
Allow that,
I
celebrate
wish I
that.
didn't.
I wish I didn't as well.
I
celebrate
don't
that.
actually.
You don't want to.
Worship and
You don't
praise.
want to.
Worship and praise.
And the Grammys. I'm not sure if you watched the Grammys.
I heard about
They were
it.
all over each
Didn't
other
I-
on the Grammys.
Yeah, and I posted something about, okay, we're really gonna make Pepe Le Pew a problem, and yet two women can have simulated lesbian sex on stage, and we'll sit here
It
and
is
applaud
unbelievable.
how
so backward.
progressive and liberated they are. Like, oh, good night.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. You know when I see that headline though, I'm like, good. You keep going. More and more people are waking up to wokeness, and they're realizing this. Okay, stop. This is, I heard one person say, progressive woke culture. There are only two realities behind it. Either it lacks intelligence, or it lacks integrity. Right? Like that you're not actually thinking through what you're actually saying here, and you're so myopic in your understanding that you can't see the incongruity of calling foul on a kid's book. I think people are waking up to the incongruence of it, like that it's okay, that's actually not logical.
Right.
Like that's clearly not,
absolutely.
or they're waking up to the more sinister thing behind it, which is a lot of political agendas connected to it, that this is actually, there's money and political capital connected to all these things.
Yeah.
And I think people are waking up. So the more of this craziness I see, the more I'm like, keep it coming. The house of cards is going to fall. You keep stacking that deck. It's people are waking up to it. They're like, come on, stop.
It's true, and I'll say this to you. Actually, speaking of that, the cancel culture. Actually, Justin Bieber had a song on that new gospel album about cancel culture. And he says, "Is there no space for maturity? Is there no space for growth?" You might say things like, this whole, and especially the stuff that really grates at me is the stuff of going back 10 years to find something offensive that somebody said and then canceling them in the present because of that, right? It's just, it offers this is one of the things that bothers me is it provides there's nothing redemptive about what you're doing in canceling them, because it says you're going to pay for something that might have even, like, okay, was it bad? Was the thing that you said 10 years ago bad? Maybe, probably. Like, was it offensive? You know what? And it may not even have been offensive, right? So there's just the culture changes and what's acceptable changes, and all of those things, right? And would we? But the thing is like there's nothing about maturity and growth and the ability to learn from your mistakes and actually be a valuable contributing member of society that is just I hate.
I think there's going to be a major cultural correction to this coming up. Like, I mean, let him without sin cast the first stone.
Sure,
Like
right,
they're already crying for Obama's head now. Did you see that?
No,
like
I
he's the latest. Like they're because
What'd he do?
Well, because 10 years ago he supported traditional marriage, and you are accountable for everything you ever did ever. The problem with that is the only person with a perfect track record is Christ, right? And it's like, I think people are just going to wake up to, oh wait, if we keep playing, but if we keep poking each other's eyes out, like no one's going to have any sight.
Left.
So I think that's coming. The thing that bugs me though is it's more I think there are some sinister forces behind a lot of this, both human and spiritual, that are preying upon gullible or desperate people,
children,
and I have no
children. Yeah, I have
no doubt that a lot of it is well intentioned, right? Like they're all nice. It's all nice ideas. The problem is it doesn't. It's not life giving.
And truth isn't nice anyway.
Truth isn't nice, and being nice you're never going to get anywhere, right? And so I just think that and it's like it's. You know, if you want to, this isn't really the spot for it, but the same as it's the communism, capitalism, socialism, capitalism argument. These are all nice ideas, but at some point somebody's got to pay for it, or there's some consequences that says your idea and your way of living is actually it falls apart under pressure or further or deeper examination. The same thing with cancel culture. It's a nice idea, but it falls apart. It doesn't hold weight. It doesn't hold water because it just sooner or later it comes for everybody taken to its nth degree, right?
It's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
It sure is.
It comes under the guise of looking like it's virtuous, but in actuality it's chewing everybody and spitting them out, right? And I think the more people that get devoured by it, the more people are going to be like, hey, if Obama's getting canceled, you know, so
I actually fear for what it's going to breed in our kids, like them growing up in a culture where everything is wrong and you decide one thing, you learn one thing and then all of a sudden this thing is wrong, so you go over here and now this thing is wrong, so you got to go. Are they ever going to have an informed opinion about anything?
Yes, and it's like the thought police, the whole 1984 thing, this thing of like
Orwellian.
It is Orwellian in nature, and it is disturbing. And the idea of like knowing how to think. People won't even know how to think for themselves. They'll be looking for people to tell them how to think,
to affirm them.
And that's
I'm optimistic though. I think our kids are going to call bull crap.
To bring it back around though, I think our kids specifically will be able to call bull crap because they will have a thought process that is given to them in a way like we've instilled in them truth, biblical truth, right? So I feel like our kids, hopefully, because we've brought them to church and they've been
and talking to your kids, that's one of the big things that I find is like I love the space. And it doesn't happen as in being, listen, we have a parent, being a parent, it doesn't happen as often as you want, but those moments are gifts where you have the space to talk to your kids about this stuff and just show them like, hey, this is why we don't believe that, or this is why we believe what we believe. And here's why, right? Because it just, you can point out or, poke holes in all of the ideologies and just, it's like, anyway, I just think that's really good.
It is.
As a parent.
It's a challenge though, because I do find myself with them, like, especially with my daughter, like constantly having to have course correction, like just making sure she, knows where we stand, trying to help her think, and to me the language piece is one of the most concerning parts of all this. Is like they keep redefining and moving the goal lines on everything and changing language, and they change words to support their agenda. Like I saw AOC, who I just cannot handle, but I saw her post something about the border crisis, which again, you talk about the border crisis in the U.S., which is now worse than it was under Trump. And yet the news refused to report it because they are completely left-leaning. And then, AOC gets in there, and instead of talking honestly about the fact that there's a problem, she says, when anyone uses the word surge, that she says, when you use the word surge, you're invoking imperialistic military language, and you are coming to oppress people.
Oh my gosh.
Like, no, they're just saying there's a surge of
my
immigrants
word.
at the border. That's all they're saying.
Yeah.
But they're taking and twisting language.
It is a game.
Impossible.
And it really,
Just can't
really,
win.
It's wild, man.
language really matters. And I think,
It really does.
I mean, I'm not trying to over spiritualize, but like, we are the people who believe that this whole thing is built on the word. Like, there is a word of truth that really matters. And I think we're in a season where the church needs to actually carve some of that out and put down some foundations.
Yeah.
And anyway, what else we got?
There's a few on this specific topic.
Oh, let's keep the cancel
keep
coming.
Keep it coming
Here
here.
you go, Bradford.
Oh, baby, look at this.
Father jailed after referring to his biological female child as his daughter.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
Back to you, Ron.
Man, oh man.
Okay, so this is obviously a right-leaning news outlet, because the fact that they'd even dare say biological
Right.
female.
So why was he jailed because of that?
He was actually, I think,
It's in Canada.
I read through
it's in
it.
BC.
It was
weeks back.
it was a contempt of court thing, wasn't it?
It was like he's been asked multiple times and ordered by the court to stop referring to his child as her and she, and he just refuses to stop because he believes that she is created female, and the child believes it's a male and is presenting that way, but he refuses to stop calling it a she, and went to jail for it.
Yeah.
So would I.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
No, man.
that's when this is getting wild, is
That's
that
messed up.
families can't, this is Canada, y'all. And that's real. Like, you cannot be a parent.
You can't be a parent, and you can't be a parent who has an opinion differing from your child. Like,
Yeah,
that's
because
dangerous.
that's a like infraction
Yeah.
of
What
like
the heck?
freedom of speech.
The
I
state,
have
right?
Yeah.
so many differing opinions from my child
the
because they're
state
a
is
child.
lining up with the whims of a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is absolute insanity. And that's not even a comment about the whole transgender issue.
No.
It's the fact that the government are building infrastructure to support what a child
Right.
thinks more than what the parent thinks.
Well, and I think it goes on to, I believe the article goes on to say that the child wants to have the surgery, whatever the surgery is, and the mother
The
is
gender
all
confirmation
that.
surgery.
the mother's all for it, and the father is 100%
Oh, yeah.
against it, which is why they ended up in court and whatever. And then the court sided with the mom and the child, saying you can go ahead with the surgery. As I think she's like 14,
Oh my
15 or
gosh.
something.
16.
16. Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
This
Like-
whole, I was just saying, it's a compelled speech, right? And this is one of the things that Jordan Peterson really railed against a few years ago, with like, and this is
what
is
made
an
him
example.
famous.
Yeah, that's what made him famous. It's this idea that there are certain things that you can and cannot say, or that you must say, and this is another step in the trajectory of like what's labeled hate speech and who gets to say what is what and what isn't what. And it's really this thing of like this creeping tide of situations where you like, I shouldn't be able to say, like, this is the I guess you shouldn't ever tell somebody what they can or cannot say. It's such a dangerous and a precarious position to hold. It's one of those things, again, in theory, it's a really nice idea. In practice, it's got all kinds of problems, because it's who gets to say, who dictates what is safe and what is not.
Yeah.
And it's all that stuff. And it's so subjective, and it changes over time. If we've learned any lesson over history, is this stuff changes, people change their mind. In 10 years, we might be out of this whole nonsense. We might not, but in 20 years, we might be out of this whole nonsense. And it's like what we call something, like it just boggles my mind how we can say with any integrity, or we could just, it's this whatever this is, to sit behind a court, to sit behind a court's bench and dictate that you can or cannot say something. It just boggles my mind.
It speaks to the lack of value for family.
Yeah, it does.
In the like the political system in Canada, at very least, like the fact that there's not a level of reverence. And again, there is a point like where freedom of speech does have limits. Like there are certain things that, you should be able to speak your opinion.
You should be able to.
There are certain things you can't say, like you can't incite violence on other people.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what they're actually trying to weasel in though.
They're
on
saying it's
is that
dangerous
this is
for the child.
you're inciting violence. And like I posted something. They're having this conversation in the Canadian Parliament and the British Parliament, basically saying that if you call certain sexuality a sin, that's hate speech and it's inciting violence on a person.
Right.
And that is the exit ramp to Christians and people like me who, when I get up and I read, in the beginning God made man and woman in his image.
Right.
Like that, we're on the road where they're going to be coming to edit that stuff, like in the Bible, where you can't say that because that's hate speech to a person that was, that's non-binary. Well, the Bible's binary. Yeah, and that's actually one of the main themes of the Bible is that the binaries have been brought together. And anyway,
and the road of you as a parent not being able to tell your child something different is near, if not already here. And that to me is it's what makes me the angriest is I literally made this human. Yeah. I birthed this human. And you are telling me that I don't have the right to tell him or her what I think and I believe is true and that the way that I want them to walk, this kid is mine. I made it. Yeah. You back off.
And unfortunately for parents, and we've all done this to our own parents, you're in your mid-20s before you value your parents' opinion.
Right.
Right.
Like you don't get it.
You're
have to
in your mid-20s before your brain even is functioning properly.
Yeah. Like, but you have that whole like from 23 to 35 years age bracket where you're like, hey, my parents weren't that mental. Like
that's true.
And you're like waking up to the reality that maybe they did know something. And it's like, if parents aren't given that right to authority over their own offspring, it's scary. Man.
Super scary.
This may be a bit insulting, but I grew up with a black mother who, I'm not saying this is a race thing, but I do think I work with students, and so I see a lot of parents not parenting anymore.
Soccer moms.
They're not.
You do you.
What do you want, honey?
Run your family, love your kids, challenge. We live in a culture where so many kids have way too much power, way too much.
Absolutely.
Way too much power, and parents are just kind of letting them do them, letting them be you. Yeah. And I had a mom that just said, "No, we will go to church. You will, go to youth group. You will learn the Bible. You will memorize scripture. And if you hate it, sorry.
Yeah, this is not a democracy.
Right? Yeah. There's a rule in my house is that you don't
get
to make life-changing decisions until you're an adult.
Yeah, for sure. The dominion of your life is established by me, your father.
Yeah.
And we're gonna.
It's just way too soft now, and I think
and you do get kids that rebel and stuff, but let's let families work that out and not the government. Like the government is just way too fat and way too involved, and I think I'm becoming more of a libertarian in my old age,
right?
Where it's just I just think they're way too involved in too much, but which I mean as per the COVID crisis. But anyway.
Just one other thing about this whole thing and this whole transitioning thing is it may not even be over. Right, like there are stories out there that if you care to look, there are stories of people who born biological male, transitioned to female, and have lived that way for a while, years, and that have transitioned back to a biological male and found that they are happy, right? And so I think that it's like, can you imagine that if we just start throwing all this stuff, this hormonal stuff, even the surgery, can you imagine what that does is if you believe that you are the opposite gender, you go through the surgery, and then all of a sudden you get there, have the surgery, and then all of a sudden it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Like, and you have no recourse of ever coming back. And that to me is a tragedy, and it's unaddressed. Like it's like society, media, all the stuff you hear ignores the fact that actually happens. There was a day, I don't know, it was like a month ago, it was like National Detransition Day. It was like where I saw a few stories from around the world of stories where people transitioned and then they transitioned back, and they were happy in doing so. Mm-hmm. And it's just, this is one of those things that if you just start lobbing surgeries and drugs and hormones around, that it creates a recipe for disaster, and you're messing with human life here.
Well, and this is where coming back full circle to the statement about, a lot of this ideology either lacks integrity or lacks intelligence.
Yeah.
In the medical community, it lacks integrity because they're actually throwing away the science.
Yes, they are.
To support the narrative.
Wow.
And they're like,
that's deep.
You have an XY chromosome.
Truth.
You like you're female or male in your DNA, and like science can't. And that's why there's a whole movement saying STEM, science, technology, is racist. Engineering and math, like it's racist. That it's racist, like because it doesn't support the narrative and it complicates the agenda. Right. And that's the hard fact of the whole thing, and that's why the thing's going to just self-destruct. Like, I think anyway.
Eventually,
like you don't even have to be a Christian. Like I think the writing's on the wall. I think culture is going to correct this. It's not even going to just be the church. Now, shame on the church if we aren't there with like when the culture turns and says, okay, we want the truth.
Yeah.
If we aren't there with this is the truth, like when people are really looking for it, some for the first time in their lives, like with any degree of what's the word, like sincerity. If we aren't there with like, here we know the truth. We don't have it all figured out, but we know who he is, and like I think this is an amazing time for the church. Like it's concerning as it is to, I was talking to one girl who is very involved politically in the country as a Christian, and she was saying, "Well, are you not worried? Because I don't lobby politically. I don't play that. I don't play in that. I've been asked to support candidate so-and-so or so-and-so. And anytime I have voiced my own support of something, it's been personal and no one's asked me to do it. And I just kind of stay out of that sandbox. I feel like you wrestle with the pig, you're going to get muddy, and the pig likes it. And so but she said, well, do you not think that you're going to end up in jail? And I said, I might, but I don't think it'll be long. I think our country has enough, I think there's enough common sense and there's enough appetite for real truth in the DNA of who we are that we just need a few more of these things to kind of start tipping the scale where people are like, wait a minute. You're putting that pastor to jail for reading Genesis chapter 2? Yeah. No. I just think it might unfortunately take a few things to wake people up to it fully. Right. But I think the day's coming. Yeah. So, what? Bring that Toronto Sun one up. I saw you posting that one, Demi Lovato, and it's another cancel culture one. Let's do that real quick, because I actually had a thought. I wanted you to read that, and I had a thought that had nothing to do with cancel culture. I don't totally remember what it is. Read it. Bring us in here.
Demi Lovato slams transphobic gender reveal parties.
Here's my take on this. This is why I wanted to bring this up.
Okay.
Frig you, Toronto Sun.
We're going hard today.
Oh my God.
The freaking media.
For real.
Let's just flip this on the media. I'm done with the cancel culture. That is a huge part of the problem. Is the media that is clickbait. That is controversial, and they know it, even though they're trying to make it sound like it's not. Yeah. And the media is absolutely
on what world is what Demi Lovato thinks news?
Exactly.
Like,
That's
who
not,
cares?
That's not news.
Like, who cares?
That is
Right?
not news.
I don't care about your
cares?
opinion on my gender reveal
Yeah.
party.
Like, a lot of this, this is why I wanted to bring that up. I forgot for a minute. Now I remember why. I wanted to rant about the media. Like, a lot of this stuff would go away if people would stop supporting this industry of attention.
Yes.
And that's the problem here. And like CNN does not care about the news. They care about the narrative they're trying to push, and they care about your attention.
Money.
And so much of like the craziness with COVID, the cancel culture, it's ballooned because there's money attached to it. And every time we keep going there with these, like God, bring back some real journalists. Some
real.
people who actually care about, just give us the news and not your agenda, please.
Yes.
Carry on.
No, it's true. It's true, man. I was like, that's one of my big prayers, is that there's enough people who could see through this. Whatever they get, wherever you get your news from, it's just, please God, let there be enough people who can see through the slant and through the agenda and through the narrative and through the way that they're angling things. It's like, and you just be self-aware enough. And I'm going to say that maybe that's not enough, because, gosh, the less I watch the news, the better I feel. And that is
100%,
objectively true, that the less I watch the news, the better I feel. Nobody watches the news and think, well, that's why they throw in the cute puppy stories at the end, because they just fill you full of garbage and then like put a little polish the turd a little bit with a puppy story or something, or Myrtle Smith, who turned 102 years old at the end. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, it's garbage.
It is garbage.
It's garbage.
But shame on okay, shame on them, but like shame on us for not, like, we need to wake up to that. I'm terrible on social media. I try to like be good with it, but Ron actually, producer Ron, kind of he helps me with social media and stuff, and like I'm just awful, and he knows it. But I'd started to like go and get a bunch of like logos of all of like the major news things, and I was gonna post like, if you believe these, you're part of the problem. Yeah. Like if you go to that, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you like. If you believe the aisles, you're part of the problem.
I know.
Like if you think this is red or blue or liberal or conservative, like you have. The helpless part is, though, if we don't get our news from CNN or Fox, then where do we get it? If we don't get it from CBC, then where do we get it? And it's like, I think sifting the internet is your friend, and there are a few like grassroots ones that are coming up that'll shoot somewhat straight. But if you don't recognize the spin and the agenda that's coming at you when you go on CNN or you go on Fox News. Well, Fox News is telling the truth, but I mean, I just not at all, man. Not at freaking all. It's a commodity.
Here's what I would say about this. This is my last thought on the news, and this is my worldview. You have the political sphere, which I think the news is sort of operates in that very much that sphere. Because it's largely about politics, and it's largely about political correctness or the lack thereof. This is the sphere or the level in which that news operates. The church is called here. The church is called to look at things higher and not to get down and get in the mess and not to wrestle with the pig of the political culture. Because I think the news media thrives on the political, because it's all about what this person thinks or what this person says, or this group of people believes this. It's such a politically minded silo or atmosphere, or whatever it is. It's so politically minded. The church is called to be above and to view things from a heavenly perspective and address things from there. But as soon as they drop down and get messy with the pig is the one that likes it, but they both get dirty. So that's just my thought. That's my thought, is like, if we enough as the church can actually just snap out of it, in Jesus' name, snap out of it and come up above and from a higher level, realize what's actually going on and not to get down in the weeds.
Cue that news sound, Ron. I got breaking news. the mainstream news media is a flaming dumpster fire that is is commodifying your attention and lying to you per their political agenda. Back to you, Ron.
Yes.
Yeah,
Next.
we need that.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
man.
Next.
I'm so cranky.
Here we are, but we laugh.
No, I'm not that cranky.
That's good.
So this next one's an opinion piece, but Shea submitted it, and it'd be a good
Okay.
topic of discussion.
Yeah.
You want to read it, Bradford?
Yeah, let's read it. Is the evangelical view of sex at the root of our sex scandals?
Our being like church people? Is that like this is a Christian article?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't read
Okay.
the article. What's the big idea? Like, what are they saying? It's in the heels of Ravi Zacharias and Carl Lentz
Yep.
and
It's
a lot of
saying that
high-profile ones.
the base or the under title there. What do you call that? Oh, go back.
Oh, go back. Let's read the
It
subtitle.
says it was not celebrity culture that taught Ravi, whatever his last name is,
Zacharias.
Carl Lentz and countless other pastors to objectify women.
Right.
Our evangelical culture primed them for it.
That's a really strong statement.
That is.
That's a strong statement.
And go.
I have an opinion, but I'm going to defer first.
I don't.
I'm still coming down off the
I
news
just-
media.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure
Okay,
if it's
Bradford.
a sex problem.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's a theology of sex problem. I think it's a theology of like power, pastors problem.
It's the patriarchy. I mean,
Yeah, it's
I'm just
like
joking.
Yeah.
I am
yeah.
bound to get canceled
Oh, that's
today.
like I don't know if it's
No,
like
you're right.
like a sex problem. Like I think it's like it's a misuse of power.
Yeah.
It's a misuse of treating pastors like they're like celebrities.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
there's no like accountability.
Yeah.
it becomes.
It's,
I mean,
it's easy to hide things.
I
I
think-
don't know.
I think they made a mistake of putting Ravi Zacharias and Carl Lentz in the title because it actually takes the conversation that needs to happen in the wrong direction.
Sure,
Say
yeah,
the same
exactly.
thing. It's
The-
it's
like,
less about them.
As somebody who's under the microscope a little bit nowhere near what those guys have had to deal with, like you can understand it does become an island, and you have got to be very intentional on having people on your island, because it's a lonely place, man. The more it's funny, the more people that know you, the less people know you.
Right.
And like there's actually more room between you and being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're men
Yep.
who, like any other man, has their struggles, and they did not deal with them with integrity with other people
Yes.
to get real healing. And man, the higher you rise, the harder you fall, and it's really destructive.
I think the basis of what the conversation is right now surrounding this topic is it purity culture that's teaching men that you're basically an animal and you just need sex and there's no way around it.
So
That-
pure. So
purity-
by saying the push to remain pure, is that what you're saying?
It's saying, okay, so if you ever read like it's the Red and White Love and Respect, that's one of the books that's like really under fire right now, because it teaches you that as a man, and I may be saying this incorrectly, so don't quote me, but as a man, you have certain needs that have to be met, and that's up to the woman to meet those needs.
Okay.
And if she's not meeting those needs, then it's not really your fault, because
I
you're
gotcha.
the man,
Okay.
and you're just basically,
There's
you
a-
can't help it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of half
You're a
truths
male.
here. There's a bunch of
That
half
is
truths.
A
true.
male.
Like the Bible,
Yeah.
like
Man's a
Paul
different term.
says flat out. He goes, "It's better to not be married, but if you're going to burn with passion, get married."
Get married.
Like there is an actual like biblical space
Yeah.
that that's an actual thing for everybody, not just men. There's that appetite matters,
Yep.
biblically speaking. It does not give you permission to say, well, I'm always going to need this, and I'm always going to struggle with this. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's a biblical worldview.
That's correct.
I think there's ample examples of people who have lived celibate lives, because I think of Henry Nouwen, who was gay, who lived his life celibate. And nobody even knew that he was same-sex attracted until like way near the end of his life, but he chose to live celibate because he had a, traditional view, biblical ethic. And, I think it's a lie to say you have to satisfy those urges. The same thing though, on the purity culture, there's a catch. There's what's the word? Almost like a backhand sort of boomerang effect, where there's also been a generation of kids that have been brought up with the purity bracelets and sex is bad, sex is gross, except for when you get married, and it's like there's a weird sort of taboo-ness to it. And so people haven't been taught like an actual biblical sexual worldview. And I think it's left a lot of room for problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, part of my generation was, I grew up in the 80s in that very much in that, that sex is bad sort of framework. I don't think I ever felt, but it was certainly around me. I don't think I ever really bought that notion. I think for some reason, I think I had a reasonably healthy view of sex my whole life, but I could see it in the culture. And I think the big thing about me, the one thing that I observed is the unwillingness to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was like
the taboo piece,
right?
the
taboo piece, might be the crux of the issue. Yep. In the fact of, if we actually talked about it more and we actually communicated biblical values, that we actually say, no, sex is beautiful. God created it. It was created for a purpose. It was for all kinds of things. And I think that right now, even in our culture, just even some of the things that you've talked about, Pastor Brent, I did call you Pastor Brent, is that it is beautiful and that it is it's meant for pleasure. It's meant for procreation. It's meant for all of these things. And it actually is a sign. It actually signifies or points to, a greater connection between Jesus and the church and all of those kinds of things. So to talk about, to not talk about that is actually to do the church and believers a disservice, right?
You've seen two primary errors, and it's, again, the enemy's always trying to take you into extremes.
Yeah.
Error one, and this is kind of like when we were coming up, was no one wanted to talk or deal with it on a real appropriate level, so it was put in the closet, basically, right? And so you had a whole generation that had very much, everyone's got sexual appetites and needs, but you're really left on your own to kind of figure it out, and we know that it's bad, right? And so that's a recipe. Like, sin thrives in the dark, right?
It does.
Also, though, sin thrives on a pedestal as well. Right. And it's like, now we live in a time where, with certain sexual ideas being kind of propagated in the culture, now there's more and more people giving themselves permission to say, well, I got to stay true to myself. I've got to stay true to these urges. Like, sex has become such an idol, and that in our culture, and that's seeping into the church. The reality is, though, like, we're going to stand before the Lord without excuse, and nobody made you cheat on your wife.
Yep. It's
you
true.
didn't have to do that. And your urges are not an excuse. Your feelings are not your God.
That's right.
And so we've failed at probably both ways, where it's been not dealt with enough, and then it's been allowed too much weight.
Yep.
So it's that's one thing I think the church has got to continue to step into more, though, is like, we can't, and we've probably erred too much on the side where it's been in the dark.
Well, I think it's easy that way, right? Like, it's really
it's
like
complicated and messy if you get into it.
It is. And it's like, that's the part of the thing is you don't have to deal with the problem if you just don't talk about it. And therefore you just get to cancel the problems that do poke up. Like, if someone has an issue or someone has a failing, then you just get to send them away.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I just think that it's like it's really a higher call to just to jump into the mess and do the best you can with what you have and love people, call them higher, and to forgive, to show grace. and all of those things, and just believe the best for people.
Until we bring our sexuality like in the church before Christ, it's just gonna like, if you think about it from the 40s to the 90s, you know, you'd probably say in the West there was a, you know, don't ask, don't tell kind of, let's just keep it, you know, like keep it in the dark. Yeah. Well, sexual brokenness was still rampant in that time. Divorce, adultery, perversion, child molestation in the church, like a lot of crazy stuff because we refused to deal with it appropriately. The same is happening though now. It's just people think they have permission and they have an excuse, but it's still not like putting it on a pedestal or putting it in the closet. Both are not solutions. Right. It's putting it on the cross. Is the solution, and finding your identity in him. And for some people, and that's why the conversation about, you know, homosexuality, we've had that conversation at the church, like the church level, you know, like some people, we're all called to a cross, and that means sacrifice in a variety of ways. And, you know, our culture thinks that's such an affront on somebody to ask a certain thing of your sexuality is off limits. I got news for you. Whether you're gay or straight, God asks for everything, your sexuality included. And if you're not married, that's a part of you that's for that space as far as as far as the Bible's concerned. So anyway, it's a big topic. We got to bring our kids up in.
Yeah, it is. And I just think, you know, just one more piece on that. Like you know, as a parent, you know, I hear stories like my kids will come home and say, you know, already, you know, with data and cell phones and all that stuff, my kids are faced with that and even dealing with some of that stuff on a day-to-day basis, because it's crazy, the permissiveness and probably a high degree of ignorance, even in some, I'm just going to say it, like parents are ignorant if they think, or they're permissive. They're either ignorant or permissive, the way that, you know, kids will bring their phones to school and look up anything. Yeah. And my kids, I have to navigate that with them. I have to say, you know what, it's okay to just walk away. It's okay. I've had to talk. I've basically talked about just about everything between me and my wife. Actually, my wife's been the hero in that one. She's handled a lot of that. But
it's tough, man.
It is tough. And talk to your kids about sex, and to do that rightly, to not put it on a pedestal, but I refuse to, because I grew up in that generation. I know. I refuse to just shove it in the closet and not talk about it. Yep. My kids will have a healthy understanding, as much as it is in my power, a healthy understanding of what sex is and sexuality, and healthy meaning a biblical view of what that is. Yeah,
the devil loves idols, and he just wants to make that an idol, right? And as long as we allow it that place of preeminence, whether it's the thing you fear most, so you tuck it in the dark, or the thing that you adore most, like he's happy with either one of those.
Yeah, it's right.
So we got we got one more. Got a few more? What are we at? Where are we at, producer?
Oh, this one.
One or two more.
Gosh. Okay. Oh, Dr. Russell. Let's
our favorite gal.
Let's go.
She's back again.
All right.
Bless her heart. New Brunswick monitoring more than 40 cases of unknown neurological disease.
Oh.
Back to you, Ron.
Frig you, CBC.
Yeah, stop it. Stop it.
Let's go back to my media rant.
Stop it.
That's not even, I mean.
We're all going to die.
Why?
I didn't read this. But did she address that in the news conference, or did they just use her picture? Like, I don't even know if she actually brought that forward at a COVID presser.
They definitely just used her picture because it was a memo that was sent out.
See, frig you, CBC. That's a case in point. That poor woman, you know, like, again, I got my opinions about how this has been handled, but she's in a terrible, difficult space. And now the news is not helping, right? They are using her face. Look at the concern. Yeah. Oh, we must stay vigilant. Like
COVID's finally starting to like fall out of the news a hint. And then they're like, okay, well, let's give you something else to be terrified about.
What makes me so mad about that is CBC doesn't care that, like, there's a whole portion of us that are going to look at that and be
they
like,
don't.
For you, Jennifer Russell, she had nothing to do with this. Yep. It wasn't even her. It's CBC. And like,
Or the people who will go on the vortex of like, what do you mean unknown neurological disorder? Where's that going? And look up and just go into a vortex of YouTube videos and research and all this stuff.
Not to mention, if you actually read the article, it's 40 cases over the last 5 years.
Get out
What?
It's not even
Stop
recent.
it.
The first one was in 2015.
Stop it.
Right? Over the last
that actually makes it
7
worse.
years.
Because you think, they've got 40 cases right now. That's
No.
what they're saying.
I know. That's what they
they're
want
saying.
you to. That's how they get your
Stop it.
attention.
That's it.
So there
I'm
you
out.
go. So back to my breaking news.
I'm out.
I'm canceling CBC
Canceling
right now.
news.
Back to my
No more
breaking
news.
news. There you go. They're commodifying your attention. Wait, what? 40 unknown? Like, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like, we've got to wake up to this. And don't at me, don't email me, I won't read it. But the COVID concern, I don't care what you say. Yes, people have died, and it's been a terrible tragedy, and it's been brutal. That said, the level of public pandemonium and terror has been way more than what the actual data
Yes.
shows.
Yes.
I don't freaking care what you say.
Yep.
There has been way more sleepless nights and crazy concern and terror, and which has caused people to fight one another and be critical and angry and job loss and anxiety. We have lost our minds because of this stuff, and
It's
this
brainwashing.
I was just talking to somebody the other day about, imagine what our grandkids are going to learn about the last year in their history books. Someday they're going to look back and see, in the year 2020 there was a pandemic and everybody went crazy, the economy it tanked, everybody wore masks for a year for a virus that killed 0.0001% of the population. Like,
I can hear people already getting mad about that statement, but like
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying
that's not true. Like,
it's
whatever. Numbers
look,
are numbers.
everybody that's died is a tragedy, but
100%.
there's a lack of honesty about the numbers of every other threat to humanity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this has been held out here as though this is this one thing that we've got to be so concerned about. And it's like, this case, if you don't believe that there's a bigger agenda behind this, that article right there, the 40 unknown cases of whatever in the last 300 years that's happened in New Brunswick, like that's just case in point. Your attention is a commodity.
Yep.
It's really frustrating. I just wonder if we'll wake up.
Your fear is the commodity. Like,
Yeah.
they want you to be.
No, your attention is the commodity, and the way to get your attention easiest is your
It's through fear. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They want you
That's
to
what
be
they want.
constantly alarmed by whatever it is they're throwing
Yes.
out today, so that you
Yeah.
can go,
What's this? It's in our DNA. Like, I mean, if you can take a long Earth view or you can take a short Earth view. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Human beings for generations have learned to identify threats.
Yeah.
It's called surviving, and the media and the government are preying on our survival instincts.
Yep.
And it is an atrocity, I think. And I wonder, like, what, I watch a lot of World War II movies. I try to like remind myself of what real character looks like, and like what real virtue looks like, and real sacrifice looks like. And like, I just wonder if like my great grandparents would be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you?
You guys are weak.
Well, I'll tell you
For
this.
real.
No.
that's why you watch those
You
movies?
guys are soft.
This
It is.
to remind yourself of
Yeah.
those things?
I legitimately like multiple times a year will watch like Fury is one of my favorites. Band of Brothers. You ever watch the Band of Brothers HBO series? It's like a mashup of like storytelling, but with real guys who were there.
Yeah.
And man, you can't even. The crazy thing watching that is those producers are trying to pull details out of those men.
Yeah.
Like these veterans, like
Yep.
they didn't want to talk about it.
No.
And now we live in a time where everyone wants to post their accomplishments, and the real heroes are guys that they're 90 years old. They fought at Vimy Ridge.
Yep.
And like you got to pull that stuff out of them.
Yep.
Like to me that's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath, Brent. Like these guys, that's your bad day did not consist of popping your head up out of a trench.
I know.
And having freaking
Or
gunfire at your
go
head.
over the trench with one person on your left and right and have them
Right.
taken out within the
drag
first
them
two
back
steps.
to your
and then,
trench with you.
I don't know. I don't know how we got into the trenches
I know.
here, but
I know. Shut off. Just shut off the news. Just shut off the news.
I
cut it in
that's the
half.
biggest
Take
thing.
it. It is really
Biggest
like,
takeaway.
oh gosh,
it's just so not honest, and it's so. And then social media just it propagates the negative and the crazy, and it's a mess, y'all. And like we got to come out of it.
This is a significant thing,
Got to
right?
come out of it.
And it's like I think we're going to be talking about this more and more. Like even in the face of cancel culture and all of that stuff, and the way that, especially wokeness and stuff, I think the church is going to be probably in a more increasing way overtly. I don't know if the right word is hostile, but overtly hostile to the news media because of the influence that it carries over people in general, and also its people, like the people who actually say that they're believers. And I think we have to, it's and I don't think it's malicious, but I do think there's something malicious behind it. So do I think Steve Murphy is the devil? No, but I do think that there are things going on behind in the unseen for sure. And so I think that the church really has to take up this spot of okay, is it good? Is it what is it? What does Peter say? Whatsoever things but he says whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are holy, whatever things are pleasing,
Think on these things.
Yeah, of good report. Think on these things, right? Like he's actually telling us the biblical model of what to think.
It's a choice too.
Yeah, it is. It is, and you got to be on guard. And you can't coast into these things either.
I took 40 days off from the news media.
Yeah.
You know what happened?
You felt better.
I felt way better.
Yeah.
And all the craziness, I didn't miss anything.
No. You didn't.
I missed nothing. It was I figure if it's bad enough, it'll get to me, and that's exactly what happened. It was the best thing I did all year. I should do it again. Clearly, frig you, CBC. All right, is this the last one?
Yes, let's end on something light.
Something positive.
Some good news.
Hey, CBC for the win.
Woo, CBC.
Old Grand Manan churches turn to new tech to protect their future. Back to you, Ron.
There's a good little chuckle there at the end.
This is killer.
That's cool. First shout out to Graham and Tim Guptill, and now new senior pastor John Lamus.
Woohoo!
Yes, they're part of the Wesleyan family.
Heck yeah. They're that's awesome.
Yeah.
So they just built a new building, and what are they telling us here?
So they're talking about how the previous churches they were kind of not doing well financially, so they all merged together, and now they're doing this geothermal technology to help save money in the long run for the church, so that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. That's cool.
Smart.
Big merger too.
Yeah, it's definitely smart. I wonder if having been in the news as a church a multitude of times, I read them and cringe usually and think, oh, I wish they would have asked me. I wish they would have asked me what to say. I wonder if John or Tim would. I don't think the headline for them is, hey, we did something to preserve our future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're in the job of the church is to die that we may live. And so this seems like a smart move, but I don't think that, again, let me rip on CBC. I don't think that that's the news piece we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate ingenuity, sure, and collaboration, but here you have a church that's moving forward and doing good work, and it's, I don't know, something about the how long can we survive thing is doesn't sound like Jesus. He's actually, I'm going to set my face towards Jerusalem. So I don't know. That's my take on it. I think there's way better stories.
I think you're getting a little jaded.
Maybe you're right. I just think there's a better story to be told about those guys than how financially viable they are over the next decades. There's financially viable. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. I've seen 6-figure checks written. God can do anything.
Yeah, but I think if they were I'm not one bit concerned about my finances. I'm just going to do
it's a smart and savvy move.
You'd have the same kind of article, but a different spin. It'd be
Right.
This church is not stewarding their money well.
Right. No, so you could actually have the same facts and the reason for the article, but word it in a different way that it actually puts
Sure.
a really great, put it in really great light rather than looking like they're
100%.
trying to preserve or survive.
I think it's trying to tell you that they're
Yeah.
doing something cool.
Yeah,
Yay.
for sure.
It's on
I just-
Graham and Ann, an island that's not super cool.
Hey,
Yeah, that's the most offensive
That's
thing
our heritage.
that I've heard.
I know. Listen,
Sorry, Graham and
Guptill on both sides.
Something
Yeah.
in
Graham and Ann
my
on both sides.
blood just boiled.
Yeah.
Now I'm mad again.
Oh,
No,
sorry, I offended
look,
you.
No, I was trying to say this as a exciting, like, that church has a lot to celebrate and there's cool things
They do.
happening and they're
Yeah.
they're making a difference
For sure.
in that community. And, you know, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want our church to be in the news for the shrewd financial decision we made. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying they have way better. There's way better things that we
Right.
could talk about and celebrate than how smart we were at putting geothermal in. You know, it's like, oh, is that's the news? Oh man.
Yeah,
come
but
on.
I think there's something to be said for just making it normal to have something about a church in the news.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
I just think
You could also complain about there not being anything about Graham and Ann Church and what they're doing there is pretty
Nah.
awesome.
like we gave away our $1,000,000th this year for Love Week, and there wasn't a peep.
I know.
And it's
you're-
like, no, my complaint is what they choose to celebrate in the media.
I
And,
agree.
like, that's my complaint.
100%. I get that.
Like, I think John Lamus and Tim would be like, yeah, if we could take out our own article, we
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have written about how shrewd and smart we were. Which again, I think it's shrewd and smart. I'm not taking anything away from their decision there. That's excellent. I'm just saying, there's way better things going on there than that, and it's like, you know, and it's not an indictment on them at all. It's again, like, I'm just I hate the news.
I think-
mood.
This
I
news,
think-
this news thing has made you look grumpy.
Yeah, you are grumpy because
Sorry.
I think they're not going to win this battle because they're in the news and you're slamming them. If they weren't in the news, you'd slam them. You just need to have
No, he's
coffee.
not slamming them. He's slamming the news.
That's
He's
what I'm
slamming-
saying.
Yeah.
You're slamming the news.
So you're defending.
Are you defending CBC?
CBC?
No, I'm not. What I'm defending is, yay, the church is in the newspaper.
Okay.
No, that's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
And
Okay.
we don't get a whole lot of say in what they're going to print about us. If we did, obviously it would be different. We'd have a different story in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't. And
Looking
so
for small wins.
they're in
Shay.
there.
Hey,
Look at me
looking
being
for
Way to be
I know. That's
She's
such
trying
a
to be
win.
positive.
That's such a win for
Way to be
you.
positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
man.
Well, I think that's a great church, and I think they're doing great work.
Yes.
So let me say that. Let me say that on
Come
the
on.
record. And
great
Yeah.
peoples.
And we know that there's way more newsworthy things going on, and maybe it is from a bit of like, we've been there, done that. On
Right.
Look, if you're going to talk about something, talk about this.
Yeah.
You know, don't talk about, you know. It's annoying to me that we've had articles taken out about us, you know, when we went to the West Side, about us being intolerant and blah, 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 but nobody said anything about the fact that we're the biggest recovery outfit in New Brunswick, or that we've given away hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to public. Like, no, there's no talk about the good work that we're doing. It's all back to the commodification of attention.
Yeah.
Was this not a little bit of like coming around 360 degrees here and saying that what we were talking about at the beginning with the Saint in shoes and us not
Yeah.
really having a whole lot to say to the world
Yeah.
that is not
Yep.
Christian, but yet the news is clearly not Christian, and here we are saying you should be talking about these things. You should be talking about these things.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
but
know.
that's just,
there's
to
a
me,
little bit of that.
No, it's like they are producing things in their culture that are worth taking note of. And to me, that's way at the back of the
Right.
list.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
all I'm
disagree with
saying.
you
I'm saying,
there.
like, here's a
Should
church
we-
that aren't abdicating their responsibility in their
Yeah.
community. They're actually doing something.
Yeah.
that's good.
And we're talking about heat.
Yeah. No, I think. Yeah.
Like, that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying. It's just like,
Yeah, it's fair, but I think to what
it's like
Shay's
when Da
point.
Vinci made the Sistine Chapel, and they're like, the scaffolding he used was really nice. Like what are we talking about
To
here?
Shay's point, to think that like the person who wrote that was not a believer, unlikely.
But
Or
they've
maybe-
walked through the church
Yeah.
doors clearly and have been influenced
but
by Tim and
sure,
John.
Sure, but to to put an expectation of the kind of things that they would report on,
Right.
the kind of things that they would value and find newsworthy.
I know the media is a lost cause. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
I agree.
Hey, if you've made it to the end of this podcast,
Oh my gosh.
Drop us a line.
well done. Well done. If there's a headline that we missed that would be good to talk about, we'll be back probably next
Yeah,
month.
that'd
So
be
put it in the
good.
chat or send it in
Yeah,
to us.
sure.
Send it to us.
If you got any complaints, you can email
We wanna hear us.
bradford.rogers
Yes.
at kingschurch.cc.
No D and Rogers.
No D. I'll take it all.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on Headlines.
Headlines.
Hey, if you made it to the end, way to go. We had a ton of fun today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Do us a favor, rate or review, subscribe, share, help us get the word out and optimize this. Get it in front of as many people as possible. Can't wait to see you next time.